Hi, I'm Daniel from Ratings.com. Today we're testing the 2019 Samsung Q900R. It's the first 8K TV we've bought and tested. This is because this 65-inch model is the first 8K TV that's available for less than $5,000 in the US. We'll start by talking about the model differences and naming variations, and then look at the design of the TV. We'll then go on to the picture quality and motion handling, including input lag. In the description below, you can see quick links to skip straight to our results. Now, in this video, we won't be comparing 4K versus 8K or 4K upscaled, but we will do a future video on this. So, we bought the US 65-inch model, which is also known as the RB or 2019 variant, and can be identified by the B following the model code on the label or box. We expect the larger 75 and 82-inch TVs in the US to offer similar performance. The equivalent model in Europe is the Q950R, which is also available in the massive 98-inch size. The Q900R also exists as an RA variant, which is a 2018 model but is known simply as the Q900R in Europe. This 2019 model we're testing is advertised to have better viewing angles than the predecessor, as well as HDMI 2.1 support. The design of the Q900R is excellent. Like many newer Samsung TVs, this model includes a One Connect box, so you can connect all of your cables and power for the TV to this box, and then keep it far away from the actual display. Only a single thin cable connects to the display. There is no extra power connection required. On the box are 4 HDMI connections, but no analog connections for older devices. The TV feels very solid, with metal borders and a wide set stand that supports the TV well. It does require a large table though, unless you plan to wall mount it. When viewed at an angle, it is thin, and it's also compatible with Samsung's no-gap wall mount, so it can sit flush to the wall. An interesting design feature is that if you choose not to use the legs that come in the box, then they actually store in this M-shaped depression at the back of the TV, so you don't need to keep them in a box somewhere or risk losing them. Also on the rear of the TV, there is a channel for routing the cable to the One Connect box to keep cabling out of sight. The controls are located under the right-hand side of the TV. The buttons make up a 4-way joystick with a center button for selection, and they're fairly easy to use. Looking at a thermal image of the TV, we can see that the whole display gets quite warm. This is in line with the power consumption, which is more than most 65-inch models. It may be related to the amount of light projected to the sides to improve the viewing angles, as we'll talk about later. The One Connect box is also visible, which gets hot after sustained use. So now we'll go on to the picture quality. We can only compare to the 4K TVs that we've tested, and also note that competing models may change as new TVs are released throughout the year. For an updated comparison with new models as we buy and test them, see the review page on our website, which is linked below. So the first thing that stands out is the resolution of this TV. The 8K panel has a very high pixel density, which looks especially impressive from close up. 8K photos look exceptionally detailed and play well through the USB port. We were able to get one 8K video to play via the USB ports on the TV, but there appears to be a relatively few amount of supported codecs, so you probably have to transcode most of the files you want to play. Now, the HDMI 4 port on this TV supports higher bandwidth signals. When connected to our GTX 1060 6GB graphics card, an 8K 30Hz resolution appears in the EDID. We were able to send this signal from our PC over HDMI 2.0, but there is a small amount of overscan at the edge of the screen, which we weren't able to disable. We don't know if this is a result of the TV or something strange our graphics card does when sending this unusual resolution. We've also had intermittent problems where some days an 8K signal results in artifacts, but again, we don't know if this is the TV or our PC, so we will continue testing it. This 8K support does allow you to play some 8K content like YouTube, but with the 30 FPS frame rate limitation. We'll go back and revisit this once an 8K source is available for us to buy. The YouTube app also doesn't appear to support higher resolutions than 4K yet. The result of this lack of content and 8K sources is that any image sent to the TV is upscaled from the native resolution up to the 8K resolution of this panel. Some people do prefer this as it looks a bit softer. Unfortunately, we also can't get a clear image of the pixels due to a combination of their small size and the wide viewing angle layer, which adds distortion when trying to take an image. We'll talk about the effect of this layer later in the video. A high contrast ratio is important when watching movies in a dark room to produce deep and detailed dark scenes. This Samsung TV has a relatively low native contrast ratio, which is in the same ballpark as the Z9F we tested, and we expect this is because both of these TVs use an optical layer to improve the viewing angles. This is worse than most other VA TVs like the Q9FN. Most of the time this isn't noticeable though, because local dimming on this TV does help to produce deep dark scenes. The local dimming feature works very well, which is good because it can't actually be disabled and can only be adjusted between low, medium, and high. We take this video at an angle not because it over-exaggerates blooming, but because with the limitations of our camera, it better represents what can be seen from in front in a dark room. We compared the local dimming performance side by side with the Q9FN, Q8FN, and Z9F. We found that it is less aggressive than the Q9FN, so it crushes small highlights in dark scenes less, which is good, but it still results in dim edges of white bright areas to reduce the amount of blooming present in the dark. It isn't as good at preserving details as the Z9F. Interestingly, the Samsung TVs seem to detect black bars and do a very good job of dimming them completely. The Q900RB has a VA panel, which is advertised with wide viewing angle technology, and we found that it works very well. There appears to be an extra optical layer in front of the LCD, similar to the Z9F. We found that it works a bit better than the Z9F though, as the blacks stay deeper when viewed off-axis. This is at the expense of a lower native contrast when compared to other VA-type panels though, but it is a good choice for those with wide seating. The brightness of the TV is also maintained well at an angle, and this may contribute to the higher power consumption and warmer thermal image compared to most TVs as we saw earlier. Light from the TV is spread out over a larger viewing area, so higher power LEDs may be required to produce the same amount of light as directly in front. Now, if you've got a bright room, then good reflection handling is important to reduce the intensity of distracting reflections. The anti-reflective coating of the Q900 works very well and does reduce reflections significantly. Interestingly, the wide viewing angle layer appears to smear direct reflections horizontally across the screen, similar to what we saw with the Z9F. Overall, this is a great choice for a bright room. Now, a high peak brightness is also useful to overcome glare in a room with a lot of light. The Q900 has excellent performance and can produce highlights in our SDR real scene, which are a similar brightness to the Q7FN. The full screen brightness is lower than previous QLEDs though, and we don't know why this is, but it may relate to power limitations. When watching HDR content, the TV can also get very bright, and the measurement of our real scene highlight is one of the highest so far, similar to the Vizio Quantum and Z9F. This is excellent for producing bright HDR scenes which pop. With an HDR source, we can also measure the brightness of the TV for different signal input levels to see how closely it matches a reference target called the PQ curve. With a 10,000 or 1,000 nit info frame, we found that this TV exceeds the reference brightness considerably on small windows and with local dimming activated. On scenes with higher APL, like when measuring a 100% window, the PQ curve is tracked well, so it does appear to vary on a scene-by-scene basis, and overall shouldn't bother most people. The Q9FN from last year also overbrightened some scenes, but that was improved with a firmware update, so this TV may also change to track the reference more accurately in the future. Now, if you watch a lot of sports or play video games, then a good grey uniformity is important to reduce distracting uniformity spots, known as the dirty screen effect. Unfortunately, this is one area that the Q900R underperforms in, as dirty screen effect is noticeable. Note that this does vary between units due to tolerances in the manufacturing process, so we don't know how other units compare, but we did have similar results with the Q9FN we bought last year. Let us know if you buy either of these TVs, and if so, how yours compares. If you watch a lot of HDR content, then a wide color gamut is important to produce saturated highlights or bright and vivid scenes. This TV has an excellent wide color gamut, and it is able to produce colors which pop. It is in the same ballpark as the Samsung Q6FN or the NU8000, but unfortunately isn't as good as Samsung's top QLEDs from last year, like the Q9FN. We don't know why this is, or if it is related to the addition of the wide viewing angle layer. For those who watch sports or other fast-paced content, such as when gaming, a fast response time is important to reduce the amount of motion blur or smearing following a fast object. The Q900 has a very fast response time, which is excellent, and so this type of smearing should not be an issue even for gamers. If you really want the lowest amount of motion blur when gaming though, then you can introduce flicker, also known as black frame insertion, to reduce the amount of persistence blur. The Q900R can flicker at 60 FPS, which is great for avoiding blur or duplications with most 60 FPS games. A low input lag is also important to reduce the time between an action in-game and when you see it on the screen. Like most other Samsung TVs, the Q900R has a very low input lag, at about 17 milliseconds for 60Hz content or 7 milliseconds for 120Hz content. This is excellent and in line with the best TVs we've tested, as it is slightly better than most previous Samsungs. There is also the option to interpolate low frame rate content while keeping input lag low, which many people like for low frame rate games, and it is currently a feature unique to high-end Samsungs. Last year, Samsung also introduced the variable refresh rate feature to TVs. This feature allows the display to keep in synchronization with the changing frame rate of demanding games. It is useful for gamers on a new Xbox or a PC with FreeSync support and prevents screen tearing. It works well and doesn't cause a change in the amount of input lag, which is great. Now, this TV has the same Tizen-based smart platform as other Samsung TVs. It is very intuitive and easy to use, as everything can be accessed from the home bar on the bottom of the screen. The remote also works well, and it is very simple, but provides a lot of functionality. There is also a Bixby voice assistant which works well. Open YouTube. Now for the sound. The Q900R can get quite loud, which is good, but lacks thump or rumble in the bass. As with most TVs, if you care about sound, then an external soundbar or speakers is the way to go. So overall, the Q900R is an interesting TV and is a step towards high-resolution displays in the future. At the moment though, it isn't really possible to use it to its full potential until other devices start to support 8K and higher resolution content becomes available. As a result, for most people it probably isn't worth paying a premium to exceed 4K just yet. So that's it. What do you think of one of the first 8K TVs? Are you excited for the higher resolution displays of the future, or do you see it as a gimmick? Let us know what you think down below. You can check out all of our measurements on our website, and if you like this video, subscribe to our channel or become a contributor. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.